I want to make it abundantly clear that in coming up with those guidelines, there was adequate consultations of all stakeholders. Because Crime Warriors, the task force, went in all the counties to talk to key stakeholders. They held meetings in county headquarters. They met members of the Senate. They met parliamentary committee on education, research and technology. What we decided to cushion the teachers' concerns as it relates, for example, BOM teachers, we must increase Crime Warriors ceilings by 31%. That is what we did, which means we have taken care of the teachers' concerns. And the other thing which I want to indicate is that you'll be surprised. I was in Wajir the other day. The amount of money charged, I can't remember the exact figure, is way below what we are recommending. And what the public is not being told by the unions and other people is that there's government component, so 12,270 shillings per student per year. So if you add that amount of money, we are talking about boarding schools charging about 66,000. If you go to a university, some of the universities for a program are charging between 60 and 80,000, isn't it? And they survive.
All right, from the archives there, the former Minister of Education there, Jacob Kaimenyi, speaking about some of the capitation that still is a big problem even today. And even the dailies, you can see the Minister of Education, it says here that it has disbursed money, the capitation funds for the free day secondary education almost 3 weeks after schools reopened. But principals are complaining over the insufficient funds that have forced creditors to camp at their institutions as well. So it is always a niggling worry, so to speak. And you can grab a copy of the Daily Nation to read that particular story. We continue pace with the conversation here as we look deeply on the matters of gender and the two-third gender rule, especially when it comes to the National Assembly that has not been realized. And now there is a presidential working party that seeks to have at least 150 slots for women in the National Assembly. And that really cuts across, I think, for the bicameral house, both the National Assembly and the Senate as it stands right now. Are we really adding more problems to ourselves? Is even the presence of the two houses able to handle the numbers as it stands? We're talking about 349 legislators right now. If you had 150, that will be almost 500 legislators in a country where we're talking about wage bill, a country where we're talking about insufficient funds to also service our sovereign debt as it is right now. We're in the doldrums, according to Treasury, that we've crossed the red line. What does it really portend? And recently, we had the legislators also expressing concern that they are not able to access the gym facilities. They want also private membership clubs in almost every county, wherever they will be. They want also the gourmet from the parliamentary or the parliament cafeteria to be improved. They're saying some of them, they're watching their diets. So if you have 150, Deputy Majority Leader, tell me, if you have 150 on this as well, and you've been complaining about the gourmet is not looking good, when you go to the canteen,
you know, some of us do not go to the restaurant and, you know, we diet and we don't eat lunch. But I want to say this. If you were to add 150, even just 100 members of parliament, you strain the facilities of parliament to one, because you need to redo probably a double chamber so that you have more sitting arrangements for members. Two, already the National Assembly is in such a way that the numbers that are there, members do not even get an opportunity to contribute to motions because there are too many. If the speaker sits there and people slot in their cards on his screen, he has, in 2 minutes, he has over 100 people to speak. In a day, how many people can speak if each member speaks for 10 minutes and you have a session from at least 6 hours a session? you have less than 50 members that speak in a day. And what we have been doing to accommodate more members in Parliament is that we usually move a procedural motion to request that the time be reduced from 10 minutes to 5. Sometimes when you see there are more members who are interested to speak, you want to reduce the time from 5 to 3.
Without putting the question.
Without putting the question. Now, when you do that, members feel they have stifled. My friend here, Nikal, is always on the cry that I haven't spoken. I have been sitting here. I've put in my card from morning until evening and I haven't spoken. But you tell them, okay, look, there are many people who wanted to speak, and therefore could not get time. You'll speak tomorrow. When he comes tomorrow, he logs in again. He can stay a whole week without speaking in the chamber. Now you bring in another 150. What will be the role of these 150 if we do not have enough time for the 300 that are already there to speak? That becomes a problem. Secondly, you look at committee. Parliament is at work through committee. Now, we have the Budget and Appropriations Committee today that has over 24 members. Currently in Parliament, we do not have a committee room that can sit 24 members. Mm-hmm. And I think we even split the committee, the oversight committee is PAC. It's PAC, yeah? Mm-hmm. Parliamentary Investment, PIC and PAC. We split them into around 7 committees to accommodate members. There used to be only one PIC and PAC, one. Then we split PIC and PAC, and then they became 2 committees, PIC and PAC.
And several PICs.
Now we have PICs. So we take 5 functions, we put in one PIC, we put another. So you have a PAC in charge of education, I don't know what. We have PAC in charge of developed funds, we have PAC in charge of this and this, so that we can accommodate members, so that they can get an opportunity to participate. Now if you bring in 150 more, we are going to have a committee of 50 people. You actually have a parliament. A mini parliament of 50. How do you accommodate those members to even effectively participate in the legislative process which brought them into Parliament? You will actually have 3/4 of the Parliament, half of the Parliament that will not speak for 5 years. So why are you bringing these members if they will not have an opportunity to speak both at the committee and in the National Assembly?
But what really informs the number as well? Because 150 is such a huge number.
Yes, because of the, we are working from a fixed number of 349. If you work from a 349 and you want 2/3 of that, then the numbers, but in fact, there are very many formulas. There are those that say use 290 members. And then those say, no, you cannot leave out the women reps. Because they're saying use 290 because the women reps are already women. So you use 290 to calculate the difference. Then the other school of thought who said, no, what is the composition of the National Assembly? It's 349. So calculate 2/3 from 349. Now the others will say that they are already the nominated members, like the one for youth, the 12. So there's a lot of, everybody has his own arithmetic of what
special interest groups.
Special interest group. What is actually the right number that needs to come into Parliament? I think the women have calculated and come and say, probably we need 150. The formula that was in the BBI, I think, was bringing in around 300. Was it 300 or what, more members? And therefore, I think we are going, if we're not careful about this 2/3 gender rule, we're going to kill Parliament. We're going to kill the effectiveness of Parliament, and we're going to have a huge wage bill, a ballooning wage bill.
That's it.
That will be uncontrollable, because as a member of Parliament, there are certain things that I will require, and which the law and the standing orders have set. They will need to give me a car grant, I need to have a car, I will need to have a mortgage, I have to have a car loan, I have to have security a medical, I have to have probably will get all the police officers now coming to guard members of Parliament. I am looking at the parking in the National Assembly. Right now, it is not even enough. Security. It's not enough, the members. Then the more members you have of the National Assembly, the more clerks you will require. The more clerks you will require. So in terms of staff, you're going to double the number of staff that will come again into the National Assembly. Where do you sit them? Probably like Senator Mogeni says, we need to buy Continental. And by the way, for your information, people see Parliament as that building that is Parliament there. We actually have something called Parliament Square. Parliament Square includes the National Assembly, the Parliament. Then when you come to the other side, you have the County Hall, which is part of Parliament, where offices are there. Then you have the Continental. Then you have Wakulima. Then you have Protection. Now we bought the new building, two buildings. The two buildings that were bought recently. The one complex. The one that was this Scout movement, the Red Cross building has been bought by Parliament. All those buildings from Wakulima to Protection, you know, all those buildings now belong to Parliament.
All the way to Intercontinental, yes. Excluding the mausoleum.
Yes, they're all bought by Parliament to house the functions of Parliament. All those buildings. And now because
it's not enough.
It's not enough. And because it is not even enough what we have this new CIPC Center.
In Karen.
I
wanted to ask that, what is
now, the CIPC Center, leave the small one. There is the huge one now that has been built. You know, there is another one that has been built on the 5-acre
for the training.
For training and for other members of staff. There, the house there. It's a huge complex. Actually, almost the size of the new tower. There, for Parliament. Now, putting all this together, you still want to add 150 members of Parliament?
So what, yeah, you still want to...
For what purpose? I know democracy is expensive. But what, in terms of democratic participation, will they just be participating because of numbers or substance?
No, the better question will be, of what material utility are all these assets for?
Yeah.
Like the one sitting in Karen.
Yes.
Because you will be in Mombasa for your committee. Yes. You will be at the same time you're in Mombasa for the committee meeting.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you have that complex in Karen.
Yes.
What purpose it is serving? Right? Because that is where you can hold your meetings. You're talking about trimming the budgets. But I think the excesses that really comes with the executive and the legislators as well, it has to be questioned. No, because you have so many facilities, but they're not being utilized.
That facility,
even that Continental house that you do have, you have gym facilities, I bet.
Yes.
We have none than 20% of assets waiting there being utilized in that particular
members of Parliament.
Continental is fully used.
You see, your boy at his age, he looks that nice.
No.
He uses the facilities.
No.
He's got his own gym in the house there. Yeah, his own.
Let me tell you about Continental House. It's actually fully used. If you go and see the offices of members of Parliament, actually, they have this room. That is the member of Parliament plus their assistant. Or their personal assistant, they actually sit in the same room because there's no other room. So there are some rooms in Continental House that don't have windows. They have no access to the outside because they have been divided into small cubicles.
Actually, if I tell
349 people are many.
I see.
If you take that each one of them has a personal assistant, just the number of people. If you take the number of committees that we have, and each committee will probably have five clerks and sergeant at arms for each committee. So the numbers are huge. As I said earlier, it is these 2/3 that we put in the constitution that's a problem. We put a number.
All right.
If you had put a progressive way to get to a number, we would be okay. But we put a number. So now we are being put to task.
Okay, we need to wind up on that particular...
If it was engineering, it was very simple. We would have just removed the number and sorted the problem out. Or if it was medicine, we wouldn't wait a lot of time. The number doesn't fit. This guy is 5 feet tall. What we need is this much. There's no argument. But here, what we measured is small. But we are still going around trying to fit it.
Yeah, so it is still a progressive issue. So that's it's a progressive conversation as well. We'll pick it up later. But I wanted just to also come to the counties, because earlier you indicated the counties, and there's a new development. Talking about task forces, we see the problem of pending bills, that the governors had actually come up with a task force to audit the pending bills. Now we have another development from the court. They're saying that that particular task force, first of all, it is usurping the constitutional duties of the Attorney General. It is usurpation of power that has, the governors have given themselves. What was the rhyme and reason of coming up with the audits of these particular bills in the first place? Because if you give person an invoice, I mean, you went through the rigmarole, he was given an invoice, the governors are decrying that they can't pay these pending bills because some of them, they can't see value for money. Let's just begin from the Senate.
Yeah, first, on the issue of gender, I can't say much because I'm a member of National Dialogue, so we'll just listen to what Waheshimiwas are saying here. And then I'm sure...
So you've taken mental notes.
I'm sure the other members are listening. And I agree with Jabal, making a decision in this country, everything you want to do becomes a political issue.
Yes.
You speak even about Gloria, you are told it's a party line. Yes. In some other countries, even if you go to America, they enacted their constitution in 1789. Then after 2 years, they realized they made a mistake. Yes. They said, we didn't put the Bill of Rights in the constitution. So they said, what do? They picked a young man called Madison and said, why can't you prepare a bill? We look at it. He prepared 16 proposals to amend the constitution just after 2 years. Yes. They started debate. By the 5th year, the American constitution was amended. They threw in 12 new clauses that is now called the Bill of Rights. Yes. Progressively. They had a good faith in running 2 terms. It was not in the constitution. Yes. In 1943, Franklin Roosevelt decided to run 4 times. Then they realized, no, this is a mistake. Yes. So they went back, amended the constitution, put 2-term limits. Yeah. The French realized the other day that having motorbikes in Paris is causing a lot of congestion, traffic congestion. They threw the question to a referendum, voted, passed it, kicked them out. The Australians are voting in November to give the indigenous people, the Aborigines, more say on the passing of legislation. They are doing it. In Kenya, you realize that you have some issues that are sticking in the constitution, but you will never see it to do them. Everything you propose, politics. You talk of a referendum, people say like that is now committing suicide. You can never have a referendum. The Australians have had 44 referendums. Only 8 have passed. But they never look at it as a big issue. They say, if you think this is a matter that we need to throw to the people, let's throw it. Let the people make a decision. They are the sovereign. We move on. But in this country, the biggest problem we have is to sit on a table and discuss issues and, make practical decisions, the way Nyikal is saying here, Honorable Nyikal. That is the only way, we can help build this country. But Dibal, on the issue of pending bills, every governor who gets elected is always suspicious of the guy is succeeding. He says, I'm not sure whether the contracts that were given by my predecessor were given in a procedural correct way. They have this suspicion that it's their cronies, their friends, who are given contracts to siphon money out of the counties for their personal gain. So the first thing, the checkpoint, is suspicion. The second one is, this was money that was being siphoned in a corrupt way out of the coffers of the county government. So the moment you have that suspicion, you are looking for ways of ensuring that your predecessors, friends, those who didn't support you during the campaigns, are punished or dealt with. So that's why you find governors saying, now the only way I go around it is I pick a task force. They look at the documentation, they give me a report, then I'm able to deal with the people who are not in my support camp, and maybe who are supporters of the person I've succeeded. I think that's where there is a problem. The issue of succession in counties is a major problem. And then failure to appreciate that there are things you can do as a governor and there are those you cannot do. When you are in office, you have to appreciate that there's always, we call it what? Is it perpetual succession? Yeah. Perpetual succession. If you pen if you put ink to pen on a government contract, it outlives you. When you leave office, the contract still remains valid. Even the president now is implementing some projects that were signed during the tenure of President Uhuru. And when you come into office, you realize if this road was being built, there was a contractor, you have very little choice. If you breach, there are consequences. You go ahead with it. So I think we need to urge our governors to appreciate that when you are serving as a governor under the Constitution, that is a government. We have two levels of government. When you come in, appreciate that if there are people who are doing work, they are doing work for that county, not for the governor who is exiting. And then you accept your limitations. We have attorney generals who serve in counties, but I think on matters legal and advice, maybe they need to make a reference to the Office of the Attorney General so that they get advice. I hope, now that there is this judgment that came from the High Court in Eldoret, I hope, unless there is an appeal, it will settle this issue so that when a governor wins, he continues with work that was being done by service providers, contractors, so that we don't have these shenanigans. You come in, task force. I always say the High Court is the best interpreter of our Constitution. That's how you handle things in a country where you respect the rule of law. Now that the High Court has ruled, if they are in doubt, they can appeal. If the Court of Appeal makes a final finding, let that be the law that guides them on how they deal with issues of pending bills. Then finally, let's have order. Let's have discipline. Let us build confidence by people who to do business with government. How the hell can we be, a government is supposed to generate business and then allow money to circulate. That's how the economy works. Anywhere in the world, the biggest trading partner for any business person is government. But in Kenya, we have a situation where you do business with government, but it takes you 10 years or more to be paid. We have people who have had assets. You know, they use assets, obtain loan to do business with government. They are never paid. They are auctioned. Read the newspaper. See the number of people in business whose assets are being auctioned. I think we need to come with come up with a solution. Budget for how you want to utilize your money. If you sign a contract and the work is done and the procedures are followed, there is certification that work has been done, please pay. That's the only way we can attract good business people who will do good work for you as a government, give you quality work,